Welcome back, everybody, to the Rico 12 Ask It Basket with Robert P., the recovery guy. I'm really grateful to be able to sit down with him and just go through questions that he encounters, and we all encounter at one point or another as we're walking in recovery. But he's encountering a lot of these questions as he goes into treatment centers and working with fellows who are early on in this path of recovery that we are trudging along and marching down. And I'm just so excited to sit down again with you, Robert. We're missing Michelle, but man, we're grateful for that connection we have with her also. And hopefully we have her back in here with us at some point in the near future. So, Robert, tell us a little bit about what's going on in your life.
Oh, just I got a confirmation email from my friend Daniel, who runs a couple treatment centers in Southern California, and I got confirmed the 16th and the 17th in Bloomington, California. I get to go in and spend an hour and a half each day, an hour and a half with the females and an hour and a half with the males, and then the next thing. And what's really exciting is I'll be speaking in Southern California on the 17th, along with my sponsor, who collected a 45-year chip of recovery on January 1st. And he is going to go into the treatment center on one of those 2 days. So I'm excited that between him and me, we'll have 83 years of recovery. And so between the two of us, we should be able to come up with some relative truth. And I'm just excited, Justin, just like you. Service is the fuel that fires my engine, and I never want to wake up and find out that this journey was a destination. So I love every second of recovery, and there's always something going on. I go back into the treatment center, Brighton Treatment Center, this Wednesday, and one of my new sponsees and a young lady. I'm going to turn over another big book study to them, similar to the Ask It Basket that we do. So one thing I'm assured of, Justin, and you found the same thing, that if we, with a good heart, ask God where He would have us be, He makes no bones about it. He's just waiting for us to ask so He can direct us as to where our time is best spent. So that's what I spend a lot of my time doing.
I love it. And I love where God leads you. That's really cool. I have not been led to that similar place, but I am led all over the place in this as I say, hey, God, what do you want me to be? Where are you sending me? And every time I'm willing to go, I end up in a place that that I just go, wow, God, that is amazing. That
on the terms of a higher power and God, I want a God who is bigger than my circumstances. I want a God who is bigger than any problem I would ever have. Sometimes you hear in the rooms that God is big enough for I want a God who's bigger than my problems. I want a God who is so large that He could even create the universe if called upon.
Yeah, I love that. I was working with a sponsee a few years back. We were going through the steps, and I was asking him, what characteristics does God need to have for you, for God to be big enough for you? And he went down, he started listing things, and they were all things that I've heard and said before in my whole, as I've gone through this and everything. And then he said, my God needs to be brave and courageous. And that was something that I had never heard anybody say, or I hadn't said that. I just made the assumption, hey, that's what God is, brave and courageous. But as he said that, just this light flicked on that there's a characteristic that while I had not ever said, hey, God, I need you to be courageous and brave, it hit me and I went, wow, that is really powerful. Before we get into some of the things we want to talk about, tell me some of the characteristics beyond He's big enough, more than big enough to solve all your problems that you need God to have in your life.
We could spend the whole hour on the attributes of God. I think I need I need a God who bypasses my ego. I need a God who allows me to see others the way He sees them. And your God can be anything you want. So when I refer to as a He, if your God's a she or a tree or a sunrise, more power to you, literally. I need my God to have um, superhuman tendencies and abilities, because there will become a time where I have no mental defense against that first drink. That defense must come from a power greater than me. And I need a God who never sleeps, because someone has to stand guard while I'm sleeping. And I need a God, you as a married man also, I need a God who will preside over the covenant that I have with my wife. I need a God who can protect my grandchildren when I don't even know where they're at. You know, some of those things that we take for granted, God does, uh, in spite of who we are and whether or not we're deserving. Um, you know, I'm often amazed when God, and this is probably the thing that I'm in awe of most. God kept me alive when I was contrary to life. And for that, only God could do that and be that. And if there's any question I could ask God, I don't know if it'll matter um, when I get to eternity. However, if I could ask God anything, it would be, why did you keep me alive as long as you did? Why did you keep me alive um, when I was contrary to everything that you said and everything that you wanted for me? Um, I want a God that I'm in awe of on a regular basis. And trust me, I am in awe of the things that God has done. You know, Laura's my third marriage, and I've been together with her over 36 years. I have 10 grandchildren who've never seen me drunk, and the list goes on and on and on. And that's the God that I want to serve, that will overlook my humanity for his glory, because he knows that I'm going to do his will. Sometimes I go begrudgingly and sometimes I go happily, but I strive to do God's will. Like 11th step, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Sometimes when it comes to God, I have to go against my own instincts to do um, what I would otherwise think is convenient. I have to be willing to do the inconvenient, and I need a God to power me and give me what I need when I reach my own sufficiency.
Love that. Um, I've been taking a couple notes there, but you know what? This is stuff. These notes that I've taken are more for me because the insights are ones that I want to apply into my own experience there and improve my conscious contact with God. And an invitation to all you out there listening. If any of these attributes of a God rung true to you and you're like, man, I wish my God was like that, check it out and just find out if God is not like that and put it to the test. Robert, you sent me over something here very recently about, it was a list entitled 10 Things My Recovery Has Taught Me. And I kind of want to go through these. As I went through it, I was like, man, this is some pretty powerful stuff. And I think as we dive into each of these, we can take a few minutes and dive into each of these and really have something that can be helpful to us as well as anybody listening. So here's that list, and in no particular order. 10 things my recovery has taught me. Robert, tell me about why your recovery must come first. That's one of the things on the list. My recovery must come first. What does that mean? And what does that look like?
You know, oftentimes we hear that recovery the program of recovery is a selfish program. It's not. My recovery comes first only because you're more important than me. And when I there's two aspects to that. Number one, I am well, so I can help others become well. So that makes you more important than me. And number two, everything that I am everything that I have, my marriage, my children, my grandchildren, my approach to living, my sponsees, everything is a result, is a blessing to my recovery, not my recovery. So in order for me to get things, I must be something. Does that make sense? Stephen Covey talks about think first with the end in mind. And I must do that. So I think first in terms of my personal recovery, but the end in mind is more important than thinking first. If I want to accomplish a good reputation in the recovery community, I must be a person of recovery. So I strive to be as recovered as possible on a daily basis, not for me, so I have value to others, right? I take my inventory in step 10. I go to God in step 11. And as a result of that inventory and going to God, then I can be of value to others. I acknowledge that spiritual awakening as a result of the steps. I then try to carry the message to alcoholics. So I get all my power from God. Why? To make me more powerful? No. So I can be of value and of service to others.
I love that. And one of these lists that you've got down here on my things, 10 things my recovery has taught me, kind of ties into that because so as I put myself in the newcomer shoes, or maybe somebody who's been around and has just quote unquote finished working the steps with my sponsor, and I feel and my sponsor says, okay, get sponsoring, get out there and start giving back because you've put your recovery first. And I sit there and I go, but I'm not good enough yet. I need to be perfect before I can do that. And so this next item on the list that I want to dive into is I will never be perfect, but I will be better. Talk to me about why I don't have to be perfect before I can start sharing the message.
Well, one of the most important things about perfection is that if I on earth can achieve perfection, then I become my own higher power. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
And so, from the simplest form, the thing is, I strive for perfection because my goal is to press towards the mark of the example that my higher power has set before me, though I claim progress. And that progress is a continual moving forward. Like today, I'm sober 14,136 days.
Awesome.
I am, God is, if that's any indication, if you don't die, that just shows that anyone can get sober and stay sober. Uh, I, I am much more, my understanding is deeper of the steps of recovery, of sponsoring people, how to sponsor them, than it was at day 365. And so every day has been a growth. Matter of fact, Joe and Charlie, if you're not familiar with Joe and Charlie out there in the listening audience, Joe and Charlie, if you download the app Everything AA, you can find the Joe and Charlie tapes. And one of the things that Joe and Charlie talk about are steps 10, 11, and 12, which are commonly referred to as the maintenance steps. Okay. Joe and Charlie call steps 10, 11, and 12 the growth steps. They challenge anyone who's ever done steps 10, 11, and 12 for any considerable period to not have grown. And so I never stopped growing. And that's why it is so important for me to remember that recovery, as you and I prayed earlier before the podcast, recovery is a journey, it is not a destination. I guarantee you that if recovery was a destination, I would stop growing when it became a destination. But because I know it's a journey, my desire is to how can I be a better value? How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better friend? How can I be a better sponsor? How can I share more articulately and simply in meetings? How can I be a better example? How can I be better? How can I improve? Because it's in the improving that I become of greater value to you. like it says in tradition one, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. And without that growth, without that continual moving forward, um, Sir Isaac Newton, who like lived in 1650 to 1800 or whatever it was, or 17. Anyway, he introduced the concept of gravity and of motion to to Einstein. So um, Sir Isaac Newton said things that are in motion tend to stay in motion. Things that are in rest tend to stay at rest. And I've been at rest and I've been in motion. And I guarantee you, I grow more while I'm in motion than I ever would when I'm at rest.
Yeah. Robert, as you were talking about, I'm aiming at and moving forward towards perfection. I see the general direction that perfection is, the improvement and progress is. I pictured in my mind's eye, I saw this and it was really powerful to me. I pictured a target off in the distance further than I could ever shoot even the greatest bow and arrow that I could ever make. And here I am with a bow and arrow that I created from, this fallen tree in my backyard with a stick that's really already broken and a string that's frayed, and the arrow is another stick from that same tree, and I'm trying to shoot towards perfection, but I'm just getting in the general direction and moving a few feet at a time. As I pictured that in my mind's eye, I just saw, one, hope, because I'm moving forward. I'm still picking up that arrow again, I'm shooting it again, and the bow eventually gets better and better as I learn more and do things. But I also pictured the fact that it's okay that all I've got is a garbage bow, a garbage arrow, and I'm moving
Yeah.
as well as I can. Any thoughts on that?
Again, that's where God rewards effort, not perfect effort. Because once again, if if I either need God or I don't need God, and if I thought I could achieve perfection or nirvana or whatever you want to call it, um, completion, if I ever thought I could do it on my own, why would I need God? God asks of me what I would never ask for myself. Usually that involves pain, because pain and growth, oftentimes go hand in hand. God stretches me beyond what I'm willing to be stretched. And so when I'm stretched and I understand his wisdom and I understand what God is trying to teach me, my higher power is trying to teach me, I automatically become more. And trust me, I want to become more. I want to be a better husband. I strive to be the perfect husband. I know I'm not going to be. I need to ask Laura for forgiveness and apologize. And same with my kids. And same sometimes, I have to tell you I'm sorry. Uh, Hopefully I don't have to tell you I'm sorry for the things that I might have done last year. Right? That's growth. That's striving to be that better person, um, so I can get on to other things.
Yeah, I love this. And that takes me to another of these things that you said, 10 things my recovery has taught me. I get back what I put in. We talked about meager, not meager effort, great effort with meager tools that we have,
Yes.
that we bring to the table. Talk to me about what that means. I get back what I put in, even when what I'm putting in may not be perfect in the slightest.
You know, we who have discovered a higher power, um, we've entered into a spiritual realm of belief and understanding. And as long as I bring everything I am and everything I have to the table, God miraculously takes who He is, because God does not ask me to bring a lot, He just asks me to bring everything. And surrender is a relative term, um, to the person um, who is called to surrender. We have to surrender to our addiction in step one. We have to understand the unmanageability in our life. some people who come into recovery earlier in their early 20s, right? God bless them. I think it's great. The the less stories they have, hopefully the bottom was more shallow. Yet they've surrendered everything. It may not be as much as I surrendered because I got sober when I was 32. So I had 8 or 9 or 10 years of garbage that I needed to get rid of in my fourth step. And as I traveled, I I had to surrender more, but I didn't have to surrender to a greater degree. Does that make sense?
It does, and I I love how my higher power puts images into my mind that make sense to me. It may not make sense to everybody, but I'm going to share this one, and it's kind of an inverse image. You know, as you shared, you know, sometimes somebody may not have be giving up as much as maybe I or surrendering as much as I surrendered, but they're still surrendering all. The image from the New Testament, the widow at the temple who put her two mites
Yeah.
in, and it was all she had. That was all she had. Whereas if I've if I've blown my life to pieces for decades, I'm coming with a big old pile of stuff that I'm throwing in and surrendering, but it's still as much. It's everything. I'm giving everything.
Yes.
Any other thoughts on that?
No, we can go on because that is a great biblical analogy. And whether you believe in the Bible or not, the concept is true. Um, if we're giving, even a person who gives from their poverty, but they're giving everything from their poverty, is better off than the rich man who gives more but holds back.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, and that kind of leads me to the next one of the next ones here that I want to go into. It's sometimes letting go is less painful than holding on. And I see that, and hey, I've got this big old wad of stuff that I need to surrender, but I want to hold on to just this little bit, my favorite part. How is letting go, though, in the end, less painful than holding on to that favorite part?
You know, the longer I hold on, there's two things to that. The longer I hold on to something that no longer belongs to me, usually it is the past. Um, the I'm suffering needlessly for something that is not a part of me today, and it's usually something that's uncontrollable. Um, the past is certainly uncontrollable, or something else that someone else did. Um, so there's that pain involved. One of the things that holding on to the past does, until I let go of the past, I'm no good in the present or the future because I'm still in the past. I'm still holding on to it. So I'm experiencing pain unnecessarily because I'm reliving that past over with guilt, resentment, fear, anxiety, those types of human emotions that are oftentimes tied with holding on to the past. Also, though, it prevents me from serving others or serving God. It says in the big book, it says, but obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. So if I don't have freedom, God is not going to help me set another captive free. And while I'm holding on to that, I'm holding on to pain unnecessarily. The promises in the big book on page 83 and 84, we're going to know a new happiness and a new freedom. We will not regret the past, nor do we wish to shut the door on it. So I don't regret the past. So as soon as I let it go, years ago, my sister Mary gave me this beautiful poem. See, God wants us to let go of the past so we can take care of the present, so he can lead us in the future. My sister Mary taught me this great poem, and it goes like this. As children bring their broken toys, with tears for us to mend. I brought my broken dreams to God because he was my friend. After waiting patiently, I screamed, "How could you be so slow?" "My child," he said, "what could I do? You never did let go."
Mm. That's a beautiful poem. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
And I used to have a pet rock. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So pet rock back in the 80s, for all you youngsters out there, pet rocks were really cool. They just had things painted on them on both sides. So I had this pet rock, and on one side it says, "Please turn me over." Do you know what it said on the other side?
I can't wait to hear.
"Thank you."
Ah, love it.
As soon as I turn it over, it doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to God. And it's better in God's hands than it is to me. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. I love that. I love the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, all 164 pages plus the Roman numerals.
Yeah. And I love that pet rock story. That's a beautiful image. Please turn me over. Thank you. Love
Yeah,
that. Once I give it over, it's God's. It's no longer
yeah,
mine, and I can say thank you for taking it.
yeah, yeah. Because it was just causing me pain and discomfort, and it got in the way of me doing His will through me for others.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, this next one, I'm going to ask you what. Just kind of talk me through it. Not everyone will get it because they haven't lived it. Why is that something that recovery has taught you?
Because well, it's it's kind of like explaining something to someone in a foreign language, like someone who speaks only French and I speak only English, and I'm trying to explain a concept to them in English. They're looking at me like, "Dude, what are you talking about? I don't understand a word you're saying." And this is boy, that's a great question, because it's one of the reasons that you and I, we understand each other. We get along. We understand the different rooms. One of the great things about your podcast are all the different disciplines and the backgrounds, whether it's OA, GA, SA, EA, AA, Al Anon, NA. You bring them all on, because at the core of everyone is a sense of loss, is a sense of bewilderment, is a sense of codependency. Every one of our conditions is a codependence condition, based on based on hiding the pain that we're suffering and clinging to a person, place, thing, or a substance. Um, and 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 therefore, we we have a tendency to, we need to relate on that level. Until we do, um, it's hard to understand a person who would give up his family for a strip club, or an online dating service, or an extra shot of whiskey. We actually give up our families for those things. And for a person who doesn't experience that kind of loss, that despair, that lack of self-worth, they just don't understand. That's why it doesn't mean that a highly trained professional psychiatrist, sociologist, uh, psychologist, a trained mental health expert doesn't understand us, but they've been trained in that area. The common person, like my brother, he doesn't. He's always been a faithful guy. He's always gone home. I have a sister who's never drank. They don't understand what it's like. And it's not that they don't want to, they just don't. However, when you and I walk into the rooms of recovery, it doesn't take long to figure out that I don't know how they know it, but they know a lot about me. And because they know a lot about me, or I know a lot about them, I'm equipped to help them. So it's really important to become involved and not try to convince anyone. That's why step 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Not everyone understands that insanity of addiction, of thinking that this person or that person or this drink or that drink or this drug or that drug or that food or bulimia or what have you is going to make my life better. That bet, where I mortgage the house, because I've got a sure thing. People don't, unless they travel down that road, people don't understand it, and uh, we shouldn't find our value in them understanding. If they do, great. If they don't, that's okay too, because we got a
Yeah.
room full of people who understand us.
Yeah, and that absolutely true. Now, the next couple of these I think fit right alongside each other, and I think they go along with this with, somebody who has not ever struggled with alcohol, with drugs, with whatever it may be, just doesn't get it, because they haven't lived it. And so they may think, one isn't going to kill you. A little relapse, you'll be okay. You just get back up on the wagon. But these two things, if I relapse, I may not recover, and one may not hurt me. It could kill me. So talk to me about those two lessons you've learned from
You
recovery.
know, um, let's address the second one. One may not hurt me; it could kill me. Um, that's the trap of every person. Physical sobriety is the enemy, because once we start getting the things back, the wife comes back, she doesn't change the locks, all those things that occur of a little bit of time. And the more time you have, the more distant between your last acting out or drink and your sobriety, the more we have to understand the disease model of our addiction, because there is a disease model. There's something wrong with us. Um, and 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 there's such a thing called the slippery slope. And it's in a way, I used to have a friend named Pete the Greek. And Pete, I would say, Pete, what step you on? He had 20 years back in 1986. And and he'd say, oh, I'm on step 1. I'd say, come on, Pete, you're not on step 1. But that's what he would always tell a newcomer. And I certainly was back then, because Pete never wanted to forget that he was powerless. And so, and then Russian Ted taught me a lesson regarding alcoholism, and it can apply to every addiction out there. Um, he would say to me, if you're standing on train tracks and a 157 car train was coming down the tracks and you were killed, how much do you think the caboose had to do with your death? And I would say, well, nothing. He said, what engine killed you? Well, it was the first one. It was the first one who hit me, killed me. Exactly. And he said, and it's the first drink that'll get you drunk. It's the first bet that'll get you to lose your house. It's the first drug that'll get you to sell your children, and on and on and on.
And that imagery is powerful, that train. And yet here I am, if I'm standing on the tracks, I'll say, I still got 157 more cars to go, right?
Yes. Yeah. And and that is why, with the amount of time that I have, I've probably never been more active in service than I have been today. I probably do more in service than I ever have before, because I don't want to be that guy who would think that it's different from me because I have time. Time is our friend or time is our enemy. It just depends upon how we view our time. And what was the other question? There was two.
Yeah, the other one was, if I relapse, I may not recover.
Yeah, you know what? Those are, you know what? That is so true. I learned that in Las Vegas where I got sober back in 86. My first 12-step call, Las Vegas is called the relapse capital of the world. People from around the world with sobriety come to Las Vegas and they get caught up in the casinos, they get caught up with the scantily clad women, you name it. Las Vegas not only has available every addictive choice, but it attracts you with glamour and lights and bells and whistles and smiles, and you want another drink, don't you? As a short mini skirted girl with the low hanging blouse that shows all of her cleavage, brings you a cocktail while you're gambling, $500 when you couldn't afford 50. You know what I'm talking about. Um, and and yeah, it's just the same thing. We just have to guard ourselves against the notion that we could ever be like a normal person. We can't. In the big book on page 30, it says that it's the great obsession of every abnormal drinker.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is the great obsession of every abnormal thinker,
Yeah, it
whether
is.
the alcohol is the drug of choice or whether it's a process addiction, like,
Yeah.
whether it be food or sex or gambling, whatever that may be. And that leads me to this next one that you've got here on this list of 10 things that you've learned in recovery. My addiction and my recovery affects everyone and everything around me. I tell you, in the rooms, my primary rooms that I attend and am part of, a lot of these people are pretty high bottom at this point in their lives. Oh, maybe there's porn and sex with self, masturbation. Maybe there's massage parlors. Maybe there's that kind of stuff. Maybe it's food. I just eat too many potato chips, and it's really easy to go, my addiction doesn't affect anyone but myself. Talk to me about how addiction and recovery affects everyone and everything around me.
You know, first of all, in my addictive state, you want to stay as far away from me as possible. Even people, even people who drank and used and would own strip clubs and you name it, um, and who ran book. Uh, I used to get 86 from bars because I was just not a customer that they wanted to serve. When I went through my crystal meth usage along towards the end, I got very, very involved in crystal meth last 3 or 4 years of my drinking, like daily. And I used to hang out with guys who cooked meth, and they asked me not to come around because I did too much meth. They said, "You're just too crazy. We just can't have you." I would always throw up in the bathroom, and even places like Larry's Villa or the Kit Kat Club or the Coyote Club, they asked me not to come around because I was too aggressive with the girls. So no matter where I was, even people who made a living off of that behavior, they asked me not to come back. And obviously the people who loved me that I had relationships with, whether it was an ex-wife, um, whether it was a mom, dad, sister, brother, employer. So everyone stopped asking me to come around, people who loved me and people who didn't know me. They just knew that I wasn't the type of person that they wanted to be involved with emotionally or financially.
Yeah. And I think that's so powerful when I first recognized that when I am in active addiction, even if I think nobody else has any clue, man, their spidey sense is up and they're like, I don't want to be around that guy.
Yeah,
He gives me the creeps for whatever
yeah.
reason.
No,
Yeah.
I had people I used to go drink with. in Las Vegas. I spent last 6 years of my addiction in Las Vegas and my active addiction, and they would stop drinking with me. They said, "No, we actually go to work tomorrow. We can't drink with you anymore." When my dad dropped me off at the motel, Brett Butler Motel, back in April 19th of 1986, he said, "Your mother and I aren't going to watch you die." You know, and
Yeah.
the stories go on and on.
Go on. Yeah. And I think, you know, so when your dad dropped you off, your mother and I are not going to watch you die. One of these things here that you wrote down here in the 10 things you learned is sobriety saved my life, but recovery gives me strength to live it. So talk to me a little bit about that, how sobriety saves your life and recovery gives you strength to live it, and how that progresses through there.
Sobriety, in the big book, it says, we feel a man unthinking when he says sobriety is enough. So I interpret that as, see, we're sober because of what we don't do, right? I'm recovered because of what I do. So the absence of one is not the inclusion of another. I've seen people, and you've seen them as well, in the rooms. They may not be acting out in one way, shape, or form, whether it's a substance or behavior, what have you. They may not be acting out, but they're not well. They're still codependent. They still, they're not on porn sites, but they're hitting on every chick, that walks in. They may not be, they've in Al-Anon, they switched their codependency from their significant other to food. We cross addict on a regular basis. And I know this because my food addiction of compulsive overeating came back at 22 years sober. 22 years I was sober, and my food addiction came back, and I ballooned to 395 pounds. I care another person. I mean, I weigh 180 pounds less, 190 pounds less than what I did then. So the absence of one does not mean the inclusion of another. So I stopped drinking, I'm sober. I have sobriety on a technical, but to recover requires, and this, requires me doing the 12 steps. And when I'm done doing the 12 steps, then I need to live in the growth steps, which are 10, 11, and 12. If I don't do this, I will eventually become miserable. I will get caught up in my pain again. And as Father Martin so aptly says, pain requires medication. So whatever your medication is, whether it's an illicit relationship behind your wife's back, behind your husband's back, whether it's heroin, whether it's Johnny Walker Black, whether it's betting, money you don't have, no matter what it is, you're eventually going to revert to that, because the pain will get caught up with me and us. And again, pain requires medication, because medication, Father Martin so aptly says, drinking and using and acting out tells me everything that made me uncomfortable is now comfortable. So just because I'm not doing this does not mean I have that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. And what you said towards the beginning of this was, I'm sober because of what I don't do, and I'm recovered because of what I do, was super powerful for me. And it's going to go up on my wall of quotes of people that I've talked with that just say something that just makes me go, oh, that's something that I need to really focus on. So many people, myself included, when I first came into the rooms, if I can just stop doing this, everything will work out. Well, that's when I stopped doing it, all of a sudden all the problems got magnified. Yeah, I was sober, but what a mess until I started the growth steps.
Yeah.
Doing something.
What a great way to approach it. In the beginning, all we can do is not do. But eventually, And see, that's an outside in. Stephen Covey talks about an inside out approach to quality and change. So, outside, because we all get, and we've discussed this before on this podcast, we all get to recovery through coercion. The boss says, if you show up again, I'm going to fire you, the way you were, or if you don't show up at all, the significant other says, if you don't change your behavior, I'm going to change the locks. I'm going to divorce you. I'm not going to let you see the kids, whatever that is. The judge says, if you don't stay sober, I'm going to throw you in jail for 5 years, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to do 30 days, in treatment and sign the court cards. So we all get to recovery through what I call coercion, which is outside in. And that's sobriety. Oh, I'm jumping through that hoop. I'm jumping through that hoop. Oh, I'm making this person happy. Aren't I well? Aren't I this and that? At some point, we need to take, instead of asking others to take ownership of our sobriety or recovery, we have to take ownership. That's when it becomes inside out. When it becomes inside out, that's when I'm working the steps. I really have surrendered. I really do believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I have become willing to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as we understood him. And I'm taking that inventory. I'm admitting, I'm asking God to remove the defects of character. I'm humbly asking him to remove the shortcomings. I'm making a list of persons I had harmed. I'm making amends to them. I'm continuing to take a personal inventory. I'm sought God through prayer and meditation, praying only for the power, and then I'm carrying the message once I acknowledge that spiritual awakening. So the path is the same. And what's great about this path, Jason, or Justin, excuse me, one of my partners in this whole thing is Jason.
No worries.
And so one of the great things is that these are steps we're working all the time, and they transcend. If you look at Rinzai Buddhism or Soto Buddhism or the LDS faith or evangelical Christianity or Catholicism or nature, everything in one way or another involves the 12 steps of cleansing, of refreshment, of admitting, of asking for power from some other entity, and then helping other people. Certainly every monotheistic religion of the world, Judaism, same thing. If you're Muslim, same thing. You admit that you're powerless so you can solicit the power of someone or something that's greater than you that can do for you what you can't do for yourself. But before that, you need to clean out your closet. You need to admit your wrongs. You need to make amends to people that you've harmed, because we have harmed a lot of people. And we can't wait for them to say, I'm sorry. Also, nor can our apology or our amends be tied to their forgiveness. We just need to clean that out. Yeah. And the path to recovery is the same for us all. That's why OA, SA, EA, GA, NA, AA, Al-Anon all do the same 12 steps, because it's all the same cleansing, but regarding a specific person, place, thing, or substance.
Man, this has really been cool. And the 10th item on this list, and it's not the 10th on the list that you sent over, but it's the one that, I felt to leave to the end, is this one. I can never stop evolving. I think that's a really good place to start wrapping this up, is I can never stop evolving. Robert, you've been in the rooms for almost 40 years, and I've been in the rooms for almost 12 years.
Long time.
And these are things that when I first came in, I was like, okay, come in, there's 12 steps, 12 weeks, go to a meeting once a week and do these things between, and I'm good and never have to think about it again, because I will be perfected, or at least I'll stop doing the actions that have brought me to these rooms.
Yeah.
Why can you never stop evolving?
Well, let me ask you a question. Why would I want to?
Why? Yeah, I love that. So I'm going to answer that in two different ways. First, I'll answer it from the place where I think I probably was when I first came into the rooms. Why would I want to stop evolving? Well, because it's painful. Change is hard. And I'm already doing something hard enough by trying to change and stop this thing. And once I've stopped this thing, all will be well and I will just be able to skate through life. But why would I want to stop? Why would I want to stop evolving now? I don't, man. And that's where my hope is that light at the end of the tunnel that I'm still marching towards with faith in every footstep going towards this light of hope is amazing, and this growth that happens is there, and that light is always going to be there as I move towards it, and I don't want to stop moving towards it because it's not an oncoming train. It's not the engine that's coming and going to kill me with 157 cars behind it. Any thoughts on that?
I and you the question is why would you want to stop? And you know, that's that's because you're involved in recovery. I'm involved in recovery. Um, we feel a man on thinking when he says sobriety is enough. I till the day I die, Justin, I want to be the best husband I can be. If that takes tomorrow, I'm in. Sign me up. I want to do it. I had lunch with a friend of mine today and we talked, and I think I can be a better friend tomorrow, if I'm given tomorrow. So I always want to be evolving. I want to be always continue to be enlightened. I want to be better in every way, shape, and form. Some of the areas I want to just stay, because I never stayed very long and very good. But there are certain things that I want to evolve in, spiritual things that help me to be more of a help to others, because that's what it comes down to. As a Christian, um, Christ became all things. Well, the Apostle Paul became all things to all people that some might be saved. And whether you believe that or not, the analogy is beautiful, because our striving to become better is not about me saying, oh, I'm a great guy, look at me. No, the better I am, you know what? You know who wins? Laura wins. You know who wins? My kids win. You know who wins? My grandchildren win. You know who wins? The people in AA and other 12-step programs that I go to. Those are the people who win. And it's funny when Laura looks at me and says, "You're an incredible husband." You know what that does for me? Because I love her more than breath. That that encourages me. Wow, this is working. If she loves me based on based on what she sees now, how much, if I'm better tomorrow, if I'm evolving, that's why you and I have discussed, I never want to wake up in the morning and find out that this is a destination. I always want it to be a journey. And if I treat the journey properly, I'm always evolving. I'm Because God wants me to be the best version of me, because he knows I'm going to talk about him. And people will say, well, that's your higher power. Good luck, buddy. You're a POS. You're no example. But if they see a godliness in me, if they say that, if others see me putting them before me, how much more are they going to like me? And the more they like me, the adage, Pastor Moffat used to always tell me, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And there's nothing like it, Justin. We've met enough newcomers in the room who look to us guys who've been around for a minute, and they find their hope in us. And if we're not evolving, is there any hope?
Robert, you brought this all the way around full circle, and I love it how all these things are brought together in one circle. The first thing we talked about was my recovery must come first, and you said it's because you are more important than me. When I become well, I'm able to help you become well. And as we come to this last one, I can never stop evolving. The more light I drink in, I guess, is the analogy that's coming to my mind. It's not so that I can become more enlightened, more whatever. It's so that light can be reflected out
Yeah.
to others. Because if I'm drinking it in and holding it in, guess what? I'm putting that light under a bushel. I'm hiding it,
Yes.
and it's going to die in me, and it's going to kill me, actually, probably.
Yeah.
But if I reflect it out, the more light comes in, the more goes out. And I love that analogy. So any other final words before we wrap this
No,
up, Robert?
I just really appreciate you. You work, if people knew how you labor and how you pray and what you put into your ministry, they would like you as much as I do. And I'm very grateful for you.
Well, I appreciate that, Robert. And I really like you as much as, man, I just admire and am so grateful to have you to that I can be in your circle of influence. That's just a beautiful thing that God has done in my life. All right, everybody, this has been fun. We'll do this again next month. Keep coming back. It works when we work it. So work it. You are worth it.